Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. A couple weeks ago, there was a monster trade that happened, and I wanted to review it after having some time to kind of think about the implications. So in today's video, we're gonna go over the Tyreek Hill trade to Miami. We're gonna talk about who won this trade, if we can figure that out, and what does it mean for both the Dolphins and the Chiefs. But before we get into that, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider giving me a like and subscribe. Your support means so very much. It is greatly appreciated and it helps me out a ton. With that done, let's get into this version of Hot Off the Press. So the first thing that we need to talk about is what this trade actually was. We're gonna go over the facts of the matter. So the Chiefs receive a 2022 first round pick that's number 29 overall, a second round pick which is number 50 overall. They also get a fourth rounder, and they get a 2023 fourth rounder and a sixth rounder as well. So a lot of capital coming the Chiefs' way in this deal. Miami gets one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. We'll look at Miami's side of it first. And when you first look at this, the sticker shock is intense because when we look at other trades that have happened, there was a lot of ammunition that Miami had to give up to get this deal done. In addition to that capital, they also signed Hill to a 4-year monster contract for $120 million. It was an extension on his already existing deal. They added $72.2 million in guarantees after they traded for him. It made him the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history. Now, both the Dolphins and actually the New York Jets were involved in trying to pick up Tyreek Hill. Both of these teams had deals in place to get Hill on their roster, and it was actually up to Tyreek Hill to decide where he wanted to go. No surprise to me that he passed on the Jets, who were offering 2 second-round picks that would have been 35 and 38 overall, as well as a third-round pick this year, which was number 69 overall. So the Jets definitely were in the running for it, and they offered plenty to get him as well. When I think about what it cost Miami to get him, this was a hefty price to pay, to say the least, even for one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. We look at other deals. The Raiders, they gave up just a first round pick and a second rounder in the deal with the Raiders to get Davante Adams. And for me, he is the better and more rounded wide receiver. Adams got $65.67 million in guarantees. So it was almost $7 million more that Miami was willing to guarantee for Hill. And I think that that is saying something because that is a lot of money. Now, the Raiders were able to get Adams' deal done for over 5 years at $28 million. So Miami, in addition to giving Hill more money, both guaranteed and per year, they also had to give up extra fourth-round picks, 2 of them, and an extra sixth-round pick as well to get this deal done. And that just does not make a lot of sense to me. It seemed like there was potentially that bidding war with the Jets that drove that price up higher and higher. And I think eventually you got to say enough is enough. Miami did not do that. They were willing to pay that premium. Hill is now the highest non-paid quarterback in the entire league. Let's go to next steps for Miami and talk about where they go from here. What does this mean for them moving forward? It's very clear that Miami wants to surround their quarterback with all of the tools necessary to succeed, and this move shows that in spades. Tua Tagovailoa now has 0 excuses next year. He's got Jalen Waddle, who is an explosive young wide receiver who already started coming out in a big way last year as a rookie. He's also got Tyreek Hill on the other side. We know the weapon that he is. These are incredible threats on the outside, and Jalen Waddle especially as well in the slot. Mike Gesicki, the tight end that decided to break out finally for Miami last year, is also in that receiving core. And newly signed out wideout Cedric Wilson coming over from the Cowboys, I think is going to help a little bit, especially to offset that deal where the Miami Dolphins decided to trade that Devontae Parker pick to get a third rounder. Now, the Dolphins have all of those offensive pieces in place. That is going to support a very dangerous passing attack. We talk on the signings of Teron Armstead, the stud left tackle coming from New Orleans, as well as the running back core that they decided to revamp in both Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. The Dolphins are going to be in a win now approach. It seems like pretty clear that's the direction they wanted to move with Tua and figure out, is he the guy that is going to be able to help us move forward, or do we need to reevaluate and find some better options? I think if Miami's able to put all of this together and it starts clicking early, they're going to have zero problems being in the upper half in offensive scoring in the NFL. The threat of Tyreek Hill alone should open up plenty of things for this offense to be able to capitalize on. It's going to create mismatches all over the field as defenses try to shift coverage over the top Tyreek Hill's way. We saw that happen all the time in Kansas City, and that is going to help the development of Tua, I believe, greatly. When you add the speed that both Jalen Waddle and Hill have, I don't know if any team in the NFL has that kind of speed combination from a pair of wide receivers. So it is going to make a lot of defensive issues, a lot of pressure that they're going to have to try to figure out how to take care of it. The quick passing game is going to be deadly in Miami. It's going to make things a lot easier for Tua to be able to read the defenses, and it should actually help that running game as well, which we saw was not a strength. Miami was a bottom 5 team in rushing in the NFL last season. This should help open things up and make the defenses think twice about bringing the heat up front. We saw Miami's defense come in an unbelievable way at the end of last season after an extremely painful start when the Dolphins were 1-7. They have one of the best quarterback duos in the entire league in Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, who can help lock up potential threats on the outside. If the youngsters Raekwon Davis and Gene Phillips are able to take a step forward, this defense could be even more formidable. The upside, I think, for the Fins as far as next season could be top 10. I don't think that's out of the question. We saw it happen for the last about 8 games or so in 2021, and that depends on if those first half Dolphins show up or the second half Dolphins do. Now let's think about the holes in Miami, because there is one glaring issue that they are going to need to address, I think, even more, even with the signings of both Armstead and Connor Williams, and that is that offensive line. The Dolphins ranked dead last in the NFL in pass blocking efficiency. They surrendered 235 pressures last year. That was most in the league. And it is no surprise with all these statistics that according to PFF, their O-line graded as the NFL's poorest. Miami did not have 1 or 2. They had 3 players whose PFF scores were under 53 on that offensive line. Now, if we want to put that in perspective for other teams in the league, there were just 5 teams that had even 1 player that graded out at 53 or lower, and the Panthers was the team that ranked 31st, and they had 2 players that ranked at 53 or lower, so not good company to be in at all. Miami can get all of the weapons that they want, and they're clearly trying to do that for Tua, but if they cannot find a way to protect the quarterback, it might all be for nothing. I like what Miami's done in this offseason so far, but I think even with all of these signings that we've seen, more work needs to be done specifically around that offensive line for all of it to work out as they are hoping. I believe that this move puts Miami squarely in the playoff picture in the AFC, although I think the conference as a whole is going to be an absolute dogfight for those 6th and now 7th seeds. It is not likely that this move puts them over the top enough to be able to challenge Buffalo for the crown in the AFC East, but they certainly have a good shot at unseating the Patriots in the number 2 position. But to do that, their offensive chemistry is going to have to come into form really fast, and that defense is going to have to play like they did in the second half and not the first half of 2021. I'm giving the Dolphins a B- for this deal because I love the addition of that elite playmaker, especially when we get to pair that with Tua Tagovailoa, who they are trying to develop into that franchise quarterback. However, the picks that they sent over make it pretty difficult for Miami to be able to build that offensive line that is going to be solid enough to protect that asset. The deal looks like a heavy overpay for me next to what the Raiders gave up to get Davante Adams. And that is the reason they stay out of that A territory. Now let's move to the Chiefs side of things, a little different perspective, and talk about the trade as a whole. When I think about why Kansas City decided to trade away Tyreek Hill, the deal just feels like one where it was just too good of an offer to pass up. Miami came within striking distance of compensation that you give up for a franchise quarterback. It wasn't quite to that level, but they were certainly approaching it. So the Chiefs almost had to pull the trigger on it. There is no doubt that financials were a big part of this as well. They were probably the driving force of the deal, in fact, and Andy Reid said almost as much himself when he talked about the Chiefs trying to get that deal done, but the money was just not lining up for them, and the negotiations got to a certain point where it just wasn't viable. They decided to go another direction. You hate to see Tyreek Hill go if you're a Chiefs fan. I don't think there's any doubt about it for all the things he's done for that franchise. But you cannot be upset with the return that you got for Kansas City. It gives them plenty of ammunition to make moves in the draft this year, and also to try to restock the cabinets with some good young players at positions of need, which the Chiefs certainly have after losing some key players in the offseason. Even without Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs still have a very talented roster, but this move creates a gaping hole at that wide receiver one position for Kansas City. There is no replicating what Tyreek Hill is able to bring to an offense, both what he does and what he forces defenses to do because he is on the field. And so this offense is not, and it cannot look anything like it has in years past. Without a burner like Hill pulling coverage and making defenses sweat, Andy Reid is going to have to get really creative, and more weight falls on the shoulders of Patrick Mahomes to keep the offense humming as it has for years. I know that they still have Travis Kelce, but I do have to question, what is this offense going to look like with maybe a defensive more focus underneath, now that that top is not going to be able to pull off so easily with Tyreek Hill off of the field. I love Andy Reid. I think he's one of the greatest coaching minds, especially offensively, that the league has ever seen. But this is going to be a very tall task, not only for him, but for Patrick Mahomes as well. I'm excited to see what KC is able to do, but this offense is going to take a step back in 2022. How big of a step back is going to depend on the magic that Mahomes can pull off with a subpar wide receiver core, and I do not think that it is offensive to say that when we look at what they currently have on the roster. They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency. They still have Mecole Hardman, who's been a little bit of a letdown as the number 3, sometimes 4 option in that offense. They also signed from Green Bay Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who has been okay in spurts, but never really put together a long and successful season. And Josh Gordon, who's still trying to capture the magic from about 7 years ago. I'm sure one, if not multiple picks that the Chiefs got in this deal are going to go towards that wide receiver room and try to restock it and help Mahomes out. The Chiefs defense was actually really similar in a lot of ways to what Miami's did last year, but there was a bit less variation in the super highs and the super lows. They started off slow just like the Dolphins did, but they were able to turn it around late, and they will likely pick up where they left off as one of the top best half units in the league. Now, the loss of the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, is certainly going to hurt, and they're going to have to adjust pretty significantly to figure out how to get it to work without him. But the signing of Justin Reid on that back end is going to help fill that void a little bit. Now, up front, Frank Clark had just 4.5 sacks last season, so not what they were expecting when they signed him to that big money deal. He's going to have to pick it up, and they're going to have to get him some help getting after the quarterback as well. I like this move overall in the Chiefs going and giving up Tyreek Hill because of the context of the capital that they gained. It was significant. But when we take a step back and look at what the other teams in the AFC West are doing, I hate it for the here and now. The Chargers were able to sign their wideout, although I think they overpaid him a bit to keep him in there. They traded for a big piece to get some help opposite of Joey Bosa, and they also signed the best quarterback available in free agency in J.C. Jackson. Denver, on the other hand, was able to pick up a Hall of Famer at the most important position in sports, and they also got better along that defensive line in multiple areas. The Raiders, on the other hand, were able to get the league's best wide receiver, and the Chiefs lost one of the top 3, in addition to a stud of their own on the defensive line in Chandler Jones. So huge additions in that entire division. The Chiefs lose the most dangerous player in cleats on play-to-play. It is not a good look. Kansas City no longer has a stranglehold on this division. I think that this move kind of cements that fact, and an argument could be made that they're not even the second best team in the AFC West on paper. Now, I don't want the hate for the Chiefs to go too far. They are obviously still contenders, and they are in the elite group of the AFC until that is proven otherwise. But domino effects from this trade could prove worse than they had hoped with the talent that is coming to and residing in the AFC in droves. This could be a wild card team instead of the dominant force that we've grown to expect, and that has been to 4 straight AFC Championship games, so stay tuned. The Chiefs get a C+ for me when it comes to this trade, even though I love what they got in return for it, because the fact of the matter is that all 3 teams outside of Kansas City in the division have gotten better, and you could argue a lot better in the offseason. Kansas City is the lone AFC West team that is going backwards, and they did it in a big way by losing their most vital offensive weapon, besides Patrick Mahomes, of course. Time is going to tell if the capital that they got is going to make it a worthwhile move, but their dominance atop the division is now in more jeopardy than it ever has been since Mahomes arrived. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for the video today. I would love to hear what you guys think on this trade, so please drop those comments down below. The engagement is the reason that I do these videos. If you enjoyed the content, if you are new to the channel, or if you haven't done it yet for whatever reason, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. The support is so very appreciated. I could not do it without you guys. To all my current subscribers out there, thank you guys so much. If there's any content that you guys are craving, drop those comments down below as well. I want to bring you guys things that are important and useful to you. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.